We are starting a series of parables and stories written by great masters over a period of 10,000 years. Every story, every parable takes your mind within and helps you to recognize the true nature which hides behind the word of the name and the form, and we keep searching our peace and happiness in the world outside where it is not. So today's story, do you know false eye? Her ego appears true, but it is not. It is like a mirage water. It was the wedding of the young Michelle or Michael. I've changed the name for the sake of understanding. The wedding of young Michelle and Michael was a grand affair, bustling with 1,000 guests, enough marigolds to choke a small elephant. Amidst the joyful chaos, one fellow stood out. He was everywhere, greeting everyone, greeting the relatives of Michelle and also Michael. He was overly enthusiastic. He always gave an enthusiastic hug to everyone. The relations from both the sides, from the Michelle and Michael. He was directing the relations from both the side for food, for sitting, for having a drink. He beamed, he gestured, he orchestrated a one-man hospitality army. He was almost doing everything. He was noticed by the relations of both the sides. What a helpful chap, whispered the guest. Must be a close relative. As the last guest finally trickled out, leaving behind the delightful mess of confetti and half-eaten sweets, Michelle turned to Michael, a puzzled frown seizing her brow. Honey, Michelle began, that incredibly energetic man, the one who practically ran the whole wedding. Is he from your side of the family? Michael scratched his head, a bewildered look on his face. Funny, honey, funny, I was about to ask you the same thing. I thought he was your long lost second cousin, the one who loves organizing. You told me. And now is the time for a surprise. Michelle and Michael looked at each other. They looked at their parents. No one knew him. Not a single person could place him. Meanwhile, just outside the reception hall, that helpful chap, that helpful guy, had been discreetly listening to the conversation of Michelle and Michael. A flicker of something, maybe embarrassment, Maybe just a mischievous glint crossed his face. Before anyone could actually ask him, "Who are you?" he simply evaporated. What do you mean by evaporated? Oh, in the meantime, just think he's disappeared. One moment he was there and patting a stray dog, the next, poof, gone, like a half-eaten chicken fingers. Who is that guy? That guy, my friend, was ego. Eastern wisdom says that delightful and mysterious tale, the wedding crasher, who wasn't, is the perfect metaphor for ego in the Eastern wisdom. Let's unpack it. In Eastern wisdom, ego is called ahankara. Ahankara means the I maker. I maker? The same way. Michelle and Michael, they got married and they labeled husband and a wife. Can you show me where is the husband in Michael? Where is the wife in Michelle? It is the false sense of I that claims the ownership and identity with the body, mind, roles, and experiences. That identity says I am the body, I am the Michael, I am a guest, I am the doer, I am the husband, I am the wife. Ahankara, false I is not real. It is a superimposition. As the wife, the labeled wife is a superimposition over the girl, husband is a superimposition over the husband. Same thing. There's ahankara and the false I is a superimposition on the real self, our true nature, our permanent peace, happiness, love, truth, and wisdom. Let's relate the story to the Eastern wisdom, mysterious man at the wedding. The ego appears familiar, blends in, takes charge, excited, energetic. No one knows where he came from or belonged to. Ego is not rooted in truth. It borrows identity from the contact with object, situation, people, and relationship. There's a boy and girl. Label is husband, wife. Label is brother and sister. Label is parents. He disappears when questioned is very important. We never question this ego. Why? Lack of thinking. Why lack of thinking? Then what happens? Ignorance, delusion. Ego cannot stand the deep inquiry. It vanishes when the self-inquiry begins. Poof! Like a chicken finger at a cousin's table, ego is impermanent, insubstantial, and always trying to enjoy or do something. That is what the Eastern wisdom teaches. Eastern wisdom says this ego or ahankara is a fiction, not the fact of who you are. It arises from the identification with the not self. Not self. What is not self? I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not the thought, I'm not the role. But the real self is ever existent, silent and untouched, like the space in which the wedding happened, present but not entangled. What we need to do this self-inquiry to find out this I is excited on one day, depressed on the second day, mood changes on the third day, and so long, even on 1 hour. This false I takes more than thousands of roles in the labels we don't recognize. Eastern wisdom teaches us how to do the self inquiry, to get rid of this wearing crusher. You see that wearing crusher was convincing, entertaining, and even helpful, just like our ego. But in the end, he doesn't belong. He vanishes when you do this self inquiry. What remains is the true host of the inner celebration, the self, the pure, the free, and ever present real self of the nature of peace and happiness, love, truth, and wisdom. It is an elusive guest. Remember, this helpful chap is everywhere, taking charge, making himself indispensable, and drawing attention. This mirrors how the ego infiltrates every aspect of our lives, often subtly, sometimes overtly, guiding our actions, reactions, and perceptions. It's an inner voice that says, I did that, I know the best, look at me, nothing exists. That ego seeks the external validation and the pleasure. The ego thrives on fanfares, excitement, reaction, obsessions, craving, blame, complaint. It constantly seeks external validation, pleasure, and the avoidance of the pain, just as the wearing crusher sought to be seen as helpful and in control. Society often reinforces this by by giving value to the external achievement, status, material possessions. We chase situational happiness, which does not exist, and try to escape situational pain. Both are orchestrated by the ego's diktats. There is an illusion of ownership. Everyone assumes the guy belongs to their side. That is what happened with Michelle and Michael. Just as we often identify so strongly with our ego that we believe it is us, we take ownership of its desires, fears, and narratives. The ego's fleeting nature. You see that when Michael and Michelle started talking, who the hell this guy is? And they both started asking the same question. Fleeting nature, the moment you start this self inquiry, you examine who is this guy in us. The moment its true nature is questioned, the ego vanishes. It leaves you in a moment of inner calm, peace, and the joy, but it is coming from inside, not from outside. Ask this ego, will pleasure continue? Will pain go away? Ego has no real answer because it only deals in fleeting and conditional experiences. This story tells us that we are engaged, involved into the world of people, objects, relationship. We relate it. We relate to the dollar we are rich, or we are not rich. We relate to the same dollar. We relate to a person, a partner, or a husband, or a wife, or a friend, or dating, soulmate, fleeting conditional experiences. Question is very important. Eastern wisdom asks, What happens when the ego disappears? Our master teaches us, don't worry about the ego disappearance. It is about what emerges in its absence. What emerges in the absence of the darkness? When the dominant influence of the ego subsides, the path opens up to the genuine inner riches and freedom from the self-imposed bondage. That is known as mindfulness. That is known as nirvana. That is known as awakening. One of the greatest texts of Eastern wisdom is Ashtavakra Gita. One of the verses from it, it says, where there is ego, there is a bondage. Where there is no ego, there is a freedom. Is a clear, piercing pointer to the root of the suffering and the nature of freedom, nature of nirvana, nature of awakening, nature of permanent peace and happiness. In the ego, there is no destruction for me, means the real nature. In ego, there is no sorrow for me. Bondage has no place in me, and even happiness arising from ego is not mine because it is a fleeting pleasure. This master is saying, is not asking you to fight the ego. He is asking you to see it. It is non-existence. It is the not self. When it is the not self, no identification, no craving, no reaction, no excitement. And then you rest in the real self. Ego is the false identification with I am the body, I am the mind, I am the doer, I am the enjoyer. Is your car yours? Yes, it is my car. So, but you are not the car. So it's my body, I'm not the body. It's my mind, I'm not the mind. That understanding is required. No ego. With no ego, there is a freedom. By understanding and reflecting, we recognize when the ego drops, what remains is the pure consciousness, the real self. We no longer identify with the body mind. We abide in peace. We abide in peace. But we cannot think, speak, and act without ego. I'm just summarizing, I'm extending this story to give you the true picture. But we cannot think, speak, and act without ego, so it is a recognition behind ego. There is a real I. Absolutely. We appear to think, speak, and act through the ego, but behind the ego there is a real I. In Eastern wisdom, we say ego is not some evil thing to be destroyed violently. It is a false identity, a misidentification of the changeless self with the changing body and mind. As long as we live and function in the world, the ego appears to operate, saying, I do, I think, I know, I want. It is like the front-end interface of the deeper self. Front-end, front-end and the back-end of the computer. The seeker's task, if you are a seeker of mindfulness and awakening and recognition, the task of the seeker is recognition, a cognition, not repression. We do not need to destroy the ego violently. We need to see through it. Ego says, I am the doer. Eastern wisdom says, you are the witness of doing. It is a recognition. The ego becomes transparent. When we recognize that behind, it shines the real I. It is like the actor and the lie. The ego is like an actor on the stage, changing roles. The mind is the script, and the real I is the light that shines upon it all, unchanging, allowing the play to happen, yet never involved. We can continue to think, speak, and act, but in deep awareness. These actions are happening through the body and the mind, but I am not the doer, I am the knower of them all. How a seeker can learn from this story. A seeker can draw a deep insight from the story. The wedding crasher who wasn't, but when seen as a parable about the ego and the self, we have to recognize. What do we have to recognize? The ego appears familiar, but isn't you. The ego seems natural. I'm doing, I'm feeling, I'm thinking. But have you ever stopped to ask, who is this I? Like the uninvited guest, ego blends in until you inquire. Begin by questioning, am I this doer or the witness of doing? We are the witness of doing. Realize. Ego takes credit for everything. The man was running the wedding, smiling, helping, fixing everything. Everyone thought he must be important. For the seeker, the ego acts the same way, taking credit for the action, emotion, success, or failure. It loves to be seen as central. When we examine, we find, but behind all the doing is the witnessing awareness. Witnessing awareness does nothing. It enables everything. Just as space holds the entire wedding, but remains untouched. So what I said, recognize, realize, reflect. No one actually knows ego's source. So in the story, when asked, no one. No, not Michelle, not Michael, not their parents could trace who this person was in a wedding party. So what the seeker has to, when you look closely for the ego, where exactly it is, what do you find? We find it is not the body, it is not the breath, it is not the thought, it is not in the senses. Try to locate the ego in meditation. You are absorbed in meditation or mindfulness. That ego, it borrows the identity, but no substance of its own. That is the meaning of the freedom. I told you recognize, realize, reflect, and the last point is discover. The ego disappears when observed. Same thing happened into the story. The man vanished the moment people started asking, who is he? What a seeker has to, the ego cannot survive self-inquiry. When you turn inward and ask who I am really, the ego begins to dissolve, just as the darkness disappears when the light is turned on. Where there is ego, there is abundance. Where there is no ego, there is. Remember again the wedding crasher. Ego appears to belong but doesn't. We live in this world. Metaphor says in the wedding, today I have paid 5 times, reacted 5 times, have pleased 5 times. Wedding crasher. When I recognize the work of the ego appears to belong but doesn't. Everyone assumes he is a family. No, I'm related. I'm father, I'm mother, I'm son, and I'm CEO, I'm rich. I'm a long list. Millions of falsi. We assume ego is our real identity. We assume, we feel it's not a real identity. We feel it is running the show, ego claims doership and control. But the moment you start examining, it disappears when questioned. When questioned.